Hey guys, I'm Rachel Castile and welcome to Typology Corner. Today I'm going to conclude the cognitive function series with introverted thinking, which is also notated as TI. This function happens to be my primary decision-making function. As an ESTP, this is my second function, so I am highly acquainted with it. It's happening constantly in me. It's just the way I am navigating my life and making decisions primarily. So yeah, in this video, I just want to articulate what that looks like. It also, in the ISTP and the INTP, they primarily have this function as their first function. So it's even more prominent in them than say in the way that I use this function. So I'm gonna speak mainly as though someone is leading with it, but I'm also speaking of someone who would have this as a savior function, which I do. I have it as a savior as my second function. But so TI is a decision making function. It's primarily about personal reasons, what makes sense to me, and then making a decision on that. As opposed to it works on an axis with extroverted feeling, which is like the tribe values, what people are liking, how people feel about things, how things will affect people. People with introverted thinking, they do have extroverted feeling, but they are choosing introverted thinking types of decision making over factoring in those other, like the other criteria of the tribe's values in a sense. So, yeah, high TI users, they are much more in touch with their identity, which is what works for me, what makes sense for me, my own internal understanding of things, and living true to that. They are individualistic in that way. They need the space, or they demand the space, or they are responsible for being able to think independently of other people, thinking to process and analyze life, everything that they experience, to come to their own TI truth on things and to be able to live by it. That is something that their life is very guided by, being able to think independently in a sense, that they believe they arrive to the conclusions that they live by or have come to, that they did that through their own analyzing, through their own contemplation. They came to their own conclusions and made a decision internally about what they believe to be true. And so, yeah, TI is highly related to truth. It is what is true, what is false. And it's a very impersonal, detached kind of function. It's not about how I feel about something. It's just I am analyzing and seeing things and then processing it to arrive to what truth is about any given topic, about, it's a worldview in a sense. TI types are building internal structures and frameworks and ideologies or philosophies. What else? Kind of like a model of how things work outside of them. That they are guided by principles, and all of the principles and the frameworks internally all have to align. They all have to make sense together. So TI is focused on like logical consistency amongst all the things that they've built internally, and they're ever like tweaking it to keep it more accurate. Is this actually true? If I factor in this new thing, does that change the framework? Does all of these things make sense together when you're looking at them in relationship with each other in a sense? So that's kind of what it's like. All of these things connect to each other internally. And yeah, it's like building a specific like Jenga tower within yourself of truths that lay on other truths. And yeah, that's built internally apart from the collective. um, it's an analytical process, really. So, yeah, it is again, associate it to their own identity. So their ability to do this internally, to live by these conclusions they've come to allow these decisions internally to guide what they participate in, what they create or whatever. It's like they are in touch with this, so they're guided by it more so than checking in with the other spectrum of decisions. Um, let's see what else. So an element of this for a high TI person, I've kind of mentioned this a little bit, that high TI, if you're leading with identity, the human need that you're not as much paying attention to is tribe, the collective. So if TI is your first function, then extroverted feeling is your last function, and that is really extroverted feeling has a lot of things about it, but extroverted feelers, they have the need to express their emotions verbally or to talk things out, to process things. And even in types that's not something they're choosing to do often, it still is a healthy thing for them to do. Like high extroverted feelers are going to be processing their emotions out loud all of the time, or they feel responsible to do so. So that is something that they or more readily to find themselves doing. But in like a ISTP or INTP, doing it for them is all the more helpful because them living in such an analytical space, they can easily not be processing their emotions and just kind of pushing it down, not really talking about it. But it is healthy for them to have a space where they whether it's just a few people or something, somewhere that they can be honest and talk their emotions out. It's actually extremely helpful for them when they do, allow themselves to do that. It can feel like a breakthrough in their life, really, because it's like that other weaker side of themselves. So, yeah, growth always is in those areas, really. That kind of feels like a weakness or a vulnerability in a sense to go there or to let somebody into that space. But extroverted feelers process their emotions externally. That's just a thing that's true for us. Introverted feelers are much better at doing that on their own within themselves and can get clarity in that area. But extroverted feelers do need to talk things out. So yeah, that's definitely something that's helpful for high TI people. Their biggest like life problem is fearing tribe hate, like getting negative feedback, finding out that the tribe really didn't like something that they did. They kind of have a swing between, them being so high on knowing like, hey, I know what I'm doing. I know I got my own reasons. I do my things my own way. I live by my own way. Like I'm fine over here with the freedom of being able to just live by my truths, live by what I believe. So they can have a swing from like being like kind of just really confident in what is true for them, but and saying, hey, it doesn't matter to me if somebody likes me or doesn't like me. That doesn't, who cares, basically. They can kind of live in a place of feeling that way, but really deep down that is kind of the vulnerability of like, wait, but did they like that? Do they like me? Or did I make people angry? Like they deep down do care about what people think, or just their experience. Are people okay? Because it can be in being very out of touch with the tribe, you know, seeing that stuff suddenly, seeing, if they've affected the tribe negatively, that can be very painful. If suddenly they created separation in some way or didn't notice it, or that it kind of came out of left field and they realized, like, whoa, I've really, you know, broken community in some way. So it's an aspect in their personality that a lot of their growth does come from allowing themselves to get feedback from people, allowing, themselves to get to know other people and let people really like speak into their thinking or to share that with people. And because it can be very easy for TI types to just be building their structures, living by their structures, and almost conclude that, hey, experiences when I shared went really bad, and I didn't like that, so I'm just fine with not sharing any of that, and I'm just gonna go do me. I'm gonna do me around people. I'm gonna operate from my truths, and I just won't rock any boats, because extroverted feeling is a conflict avoidant function in a sense of it's harmony seeking. It wants to keep harmony, but TI is so detached logic of like, no, it's very black and white and can be. And sometimes expressing TI truths can create major tidal waves or a current of a lot of not harmonious things in the tribe potentially. So a lot of TI types can just not express it, but live by it, sort of thing. So it can be painful for a TI person to experience the tribe hate, I guess. So I've related to that a lot in my life throughout different seasons. So yeah, that's an element of it for sure. Let's see. I've taken a lot of notes on stuff I want to cover in this video. Let's see. TI is principles. It is proven models and processes internally. Something I can use practically, like TI is like the way I do something at work. It's the way I do this process. Somebody else might be doing it another way. This other person may do it another way. But I'm like, no, but this is the way that I do it. I'm aware that we all could have our own process. But if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it the way that I do it. High TI people are very in tune with the way that works for them. Yeah. Let's see. And the way it is an introverted function, but it's a function that can be communicated. It can be shared. I can lay out all of my logic blocks and give it to the next person because it's an impersonal thing. It's a framework, it's a model, it's an understanding of something. Typology is highly TI oriented. I really do like typology because I can see these models very much apply to real life and to the people around me and stuff like that. So it's an understanding of how the Jenga blocks, how the puzzle works. TI will be the person who understands how all the gears in the motor and all the things line up together and how all the inner workings have to work just right in order to get the car to crank and all of that. The mechanic brain is highly like a TI type of person. And more of an extroverted thinker could see like, hey, the car works. It went from this city to this city. It works. The product works. I cranked it and it went there. The TI person worked on all the gears, that all the very technical things that had to be worked out, all that math, all those formulas, all that stuff, to get the end result that the extroverted thinker will say, hey, this product is good. It works. So that's a bit of a contrast of like seeing mathematicians versus like engineers or something, like somebody who's observing the function of something or the yield that you can get from something and making that better versus somebody who created the actual formulas, like the Einstein who got, all of the laws. The law is another way to say TI as well. The laws, the structures that make up the bigger thing that we now benefit from, like I can use a computer and I just get on it, I log on, I get on the internet, hey, this thing works, it gets to the result I need, and somebody in there invented the chip that's inside of it and all the technical things to get it all together. That inner workings is that TI sort of space. And extroverted thinking being more focused on results, efficiency. That knowing of the yield, the result you can get from something. Let's see. A lot of this I've said in my own way, but let's see here. So yeah, it's very focused on like consistency. Does all of these things work? If you change one thing over here, does it affect all the other pieces? Is it all still coherent? Is it all still does one of them cancel the other one out, you know? So TI people are thinking about logical consistency all the way around, looking at something from every angle, comparing and contrasting. It is looking at the pros and the cons. It's defining something by chipping away from the sculpture and saying, well, it's not this, it's not this, it's not this, and it's not this, and it's not this, and it's not this, and it's not this. So what's left? This is the essence of what this thing is. This thing, the core root of whatever topic or whatever, understanding, it is coming down and defining the essence. Like, hey, this is the essential understanding. This is a truth that explains all of these other things. Yeah. I heard someone describe it as a delicate glass sculpture. So it's all about the integrity of it, that it's brittle in that way, that this is a structure built. It's a static thing, it's not moving. So again, this is a judging function. So it's a conclusion. It's not just an observation of something like the observer functions. No, it is a conclusion that I've come to about something. So if something comes in and contradicts this, it brings me to a point of like, I either have to tear down my structure, that I'm living by this structure, it's now false, and I've incorporated this new thing. I'm at a point that I'm either going to let something new that has a good enough argument lead me to change my internal structure. And at that point, the structure either breaks or it doesn't. So saying it's like a glass structure, it's brittle. If you tap on it and beat it, it just shatters. And TI is that way. You just have to rebuild because that structure was built on so many layers, layer after layer after layer after layer over time of experiences that point to the conclusion that all of this led to. So yeah, it calls for, you have to tear the structure down and build a new one and take in this new stuff. And I guess in one way I could say a growth point, but also a weakness of TI, or something that TI in a healthy place, what they would do versus TI in an unhealthy place. A healthy place for TI is to always be going out and always saying, hey, world, I want to hear from you. I want to hear new things so I can continually refine and redefine my structures, my philosophies, my understandings, my theories, my theologies, whatever it is. That internal understanding, it needs to be updated. And people in a healthy state who have TI, they are doing that. They are looking around for feedback and are letting new things constantly inform their understanding so that they can keep refining it. So TI can become more and more accurate of actual truth. So yeah, that's how TI works with the extroverted feeling. It's going out and bringing in more people and saying, hey, is this true for you too? That's why though it's an internal function, it is actually focused on objective truth because it's looking to build a model of truth itself of the outside world. And TI would be letting the community, the tribe, to constantly be giving them new information for them to go and meditate on and analyze and assimilate and refine the tower that's inside of them. And that's what the beauty of TI, what it really can be in a good state, is an ever refining understanding of the world around them, of whatever topics they've decided to master or to really dive into, to get a more and more crystallized understanding that what they're believing is a true assessment of all things and not just a narrow, small field where there's no new input. And someone said, I'm just going to defend my structure and just sit here with a gun in my fort and shoot down anything else that would come up to the tower. And that's what TI can look like in an unhealthy state whenever they're being fully guided by the current structure and never updating the structure, and just defending their ideology or their belief system alone. And only will, the whole tribe hate thing can lead them to only spend time with people with similar structures internally, as they somewhat reassure each other with their belief. That can be what TI can look like in an unhealthy state, where the only tribe input is people with the same TI structure as you. And then it's not really being updated. You can't really call it truth because it doesn't factor in all people. It doesn't factor in what's going on a bigger collective scale. So again, I guess that comes full circle, that extroverted feeling is actually the growth path for TI people, to let that in lots of ways. It's positive for TI people to express their emotions in a place that's safe, that doesn't have any condemnation or no shame or anything, for them to just be able to process their emotional side. But also for building their TI structures, it is beneficial to be getting feedback on their structures so that the structures can be actual truth and not just like the pride of being right alone, is something that us TI people can be very prone to, of just, we're right and we just live by being right, and we're defensive and we're argumentative, and we can all be that way in our own ways for sure. Let's see here. A lot of this is redundant as I'm looking over this. Let's see. So just to distinguish between introverted feeling and introverted feeling and introverted thinking, is as TI types, we're not that in touch with what we value, really. This is an identity function, but it's different than knowing like, hey, what do I personally value? This is not that kind of personal. It's what I believe, it's what I think is true, but it's not the emotions. It's not my likes and dislikes. It's a bit different. It's not the headspace that your TI person is in. They're not speaking what they can sound very cold, I think is what I'm saying. The things that they're saying can be very impersonal. It can be very cold, but it's not coming from an FI sort of place. It's just, they're just analyzing reality, or they're analyzing something, and they're just giving that cold, hard logic on something. It's an impersonal process. Okay, I think this is something good to add here. So TI types can be quick to not listen, in a sense that most things coming in is met with disbelief first off. Like, the TI has to reanalyze what's coming in. It won't just receive something because it's being this comes back to the independent thinking again, that their threshold for receiving new information is very low. It has to be analyzed. It has to be thought through for the self. If we move on a belief, it's because we decided to move. It's that the argument given was so good that we saw it prove. I determined myself to be wrong on something. therefore I take in the new thing, but I have to determine myself to be wrong first. That's how it works in that sense. Um, but yeah, they are shutting out the outside world in order to analyze in their minds. They can lose complete interest after making a decision. Yes, it's like concluded, come down to the point, and then live according to the new structure. Just lose interest in the other thing altogether. It can be that way. Um, yeah, so we're focused on proper argumentation and logical consistency in what is being said. So that's as something's coming in, it's being filtered through, does this make sense? Is it logically consistent? Or is it falling apart? Therefore, I'm not going to receive this in. This is not good logic coming in. The goal of introverted thinking is to remain as objective as possible. They need extroverted feelings so that their logical frameworks remain as impersonal as possible. This is some stuff I've taken notes on that I just feel really encapsulated this function. Let's see if there's something else I just want to add here. Don't want to make this too long. Let's see. But yeah, they need feedback to make their frameworks more stable. Okay, I think I said a lot of this stuff. There's something down here that I wrote that I'm like, hey, no, this is good. I know there was something I wanted to add. So yeah, it has an automatic disbelief with almost everything that it hears. It's kind of the approach. It's like, prove it to me, in a sense. Prove it to me, present your argument, present your case. It's kind of like being in court. Like, present your case starting from scratch. That's how the TI mind kind of works. Present the logic. I'm going to analyze the logic of all of it. But it's not in the TI framework yet. It doesn't get to change the tower, I think, is the biggest point I'm making out of that. Yeah, it's constantly making decisions through comparing and contrasting. It defines and filters through what something is and what it's not to refine their understanding of something. So yeah, it's just chipping it apart, making sense of things, putting it up against other things to get down to the essence, and then seeing like, oh, do I even want this? As in, is this good logic? Would I incorporate this into the tower? Nah, I don't want it, and kicks it out. That's kind of how that works. Let's see. They don't always think that people think things through. So they want to make sure that your claims are sound before just believing them. Introverted thinkers want to interpret what people mean by the words they use and then further analyze the statements people make to see if there really is truth in them. They will further analyze what is given to them before receiving new incoming information or beliefs. Yeah. I think that pretty much summarizes it. That's how it's working. It's not they're independent thinkers, I think is the best way to say. Introverted thinkers want to arrive to truth on their own terms in their own time and live by it. And when you interact with a high introverted thinker, though they're inquisitive, they're independent in their thinking. And they're not receptive. They resist the outside world with their structure. They're going to live by their structure, and to the point in which they grow, or their growth is based around their willingness to engage with the outside world, to listen to external input, to go beyond a small area, to not only analyze or to stay in the safe place of a similar worldview, but they can grow the more they can factor in more things and update and refine their tower even more, or be willing to let certain towers or structures they've built prior fall if they need to fall. in that exploration, and to begin to embark on that vulnerable journey of expressing their emotions and sharing their heart with people, and to not only be in that analytical space of, I know me, I know what I believe, and I'm just going to live by it, and that's it. Forget everybody. That can be that unhealthy place. That can be easy for them, that it's just about building their tower and living by their tower and kind of just being excellent in that area that they're in alone. Like, they can do that. It's just, maybe not the most positive growth path for them. But that still is their gift. This analyzing is the gift that they have. This ability to think very critically, or to analyze in a totally detached way. They can really get to some deep truths and things and make sense of a lot of different things depending on whatever they major in. It is definitely their gift, being able to think in this capacity and to be in touch with it so much, because everyone has this function, but TI people, they feel very responsible for this internal logic, for understanding their own personal reasons for things, for developing their own processes, innovating their own processes, and just creating these systems, this internal models and stuff, and understandings and formulas in that sense. It's definitely their gift. So but yeah, I think that's a good overall picture. Let's see. So the types that lead with this again is the ISTP and the INTP. This is secondarily in the ENTP and the ESTP. Thirdly, it's the third function of the ISFJ and the INFJ. And then as an inferior function, the ESFJ and the ENFJ, they have TI in their last slot. So those are the 8 types that have this as a more conscious process. And yeah, so that's about it for this video. Thank you for watching. If you got value out of it, give me a thumbs up and subscribe for future content. Again, thank you for stopping by the channel, and have a blessed one. I will see y'all on the next one.